The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy as 17 different species pretended they understood each other's breathing patterns. The annual Galactic Conference on Xenobiology was supposed to be boring. Charts about atmospheric composition, debates over metabolism, the usual academic stuff that made most sentient beings want to take a long nap. Nobody expected the human. Dr. Amanda Sterling walked onto the stage like she owned the place, which was impressive considering humans had only been part of the Galactic Council for 6 months. Her presentation slides were loaded, laser pointer ready, and her expression suggested she was about to ruin everyone's day in the most educational way possible. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Dr. Sterling, and I'm here to talk about predator classification systems." The Zorathian delegate shifted uncomfortably. Predator classification was his specialty. He'd definitely not approved any human presentations. "Now, I know what you're thinking," Dr. Sterling continued. "What could humans possibly contribute to xenobiology? We're the new kids. We've barely figured out faster-than-light travel." Polite chuckles rippled through the audience. The human paused, letting the laughter die before her expression shifted to something that made the room's temperature drop. "But here's the thing about being new. We have fresh eyes. And fresh eyes notice things everyone else has gotten used to ignoring." The slide showed a familiar chart. Galactic Threat Assessment Scale, Class 1, Harmless, to Class 10, Extinction Event. Most civilized species fell between Class 3 and 5. According to your current system, humans are Class 2, just above the Flafarian Pistos and below the vegetarian monks of Serenity Prime. More chuckles. The Flafarians were literally incapable of violence. Interesting classification, especially considering my species has never actually been properly evaluated. The chuckling stopped. The next slide showed Earth, initial survey status, pending. The Zorathian delegate's crystal structure began to dim. In the back row, a Nexarian ambassador's tentacles started twitching. "When humans first made contact, we were assessed based on our diplomatic vessel, the Harmony. Unarmed, crewed by our most diplomatic personnel, the kind of people who apologize for breathing too loudly." She paused. "That ship wasn't representative of our species. It was like judging all Zorathians based on your poetry club." The Zorathian flashed embarrassed purple. Their poetry was notoriously gentle. "So today, I thought I'd give you a more complete picture." The next slide showed Earth from Pace. Beautiful, blue and green and peaceful looking. "This is our home. 8 billion humans." "Looks peaceful, doesn't it?" Murmurs of agreement. "Earth has what we call a dynamic ecosystem. By galactic standards, it's a bit energetic." The next slide showed a graph that made several audience members lean forward. Extinction events, comparative analysis. The average civilized world experiences a major extinction event every 50 to 100 million years. Earth has had 5 in the last 500 million. We call them the Big Five. The timeline showed mass extinctions, each wiping out 70 to 90% of all life. Most species would consider this a problem. But humans are the result of surviving all of that. The evolutionary tree looked almost violent. Branch after branch cut short by extinctions, until only one line continued to the present. We're not just survivors, we're descendants of survivors. Every human alive today is the end result of ancestors who looked at planetary catastrophe and said, "Is that all you've got?" The Nexarian ambassador's tentacles writhed in distress. "But that's just background. Let's talk about modern humans." The next slide showed a map of Earth covered in red dots. Thousands of them. Each dot represents a major human conflict. The last 3,000 years. The map was almost entirely red. Now, war is common. Most species go through a violent phase. But here's what makes human warfare unique. She clicked to the next slide. Human wars have never been about resources. Complete silence. While most species fight over food, territory, or mates, humans fight over ideas, abstract concepts. We've had wars about whether bread should be sliced one way or another. Wars about which imaginary friend is the best imaginary friend. The Zorathian delegate was now practically transparent. We are, as far as we can tell, the only species that has ever looked at a perfectly abundant planet and decided the real problem was that some humans thought different thoughts then other humans. She clicked to the next slide. Weapons development timeline. Stone tools to bronze, 4,000 years. Bronze to iron, 1,000 years. Iron to gunpowder, 2,000 years. Gunpowder to nuclear weapons, 600 years. Nuclear weapons to antimatter containment, 60 years. The acceleration was terrifying. We went from throwing rocks to splitting atoms to containing antimatter in less time than it takes most species to develop basic agriculture. The next slide showed a smiling human child holding an electronic device. This is my niece. She's 8. That device contains the sum total of human knowledge, including detailed schematics for every weapon we've ever invented. Every 8-year-old human has access to information that would allow them to construct weapons of mass destruction. The crystalline collective representative was vibrating audibly. Before anyone panics, we don't actually do that. We have social conventions, unwritten rules about not destroying civilization before bedtime on a school night. She clicked to the final slide. So what does this mean for threat assessment? Well, the question isn't how dangerous humans are. The question is how dangerous we choose to be. The new classification system showed 3 categories: destructive potential, restraint capability, and motivational triggers. Under the old system, humans would be Class 2, harmless. Under the new system, well, that depends entirely on what you're planning to do to us. The presentation ended with questions, silence. Then, slowly, a tentacle rose. Dr. Sterling, are you saying humans are conditionally dangerous? I'm saying humans are whatever we need to be. If you're peaceful, we're peaceful. If you're aggressive, well, we've had a lot of practice with aggression. Another hand rose. What about the Galactic Peace Accords? Humans signed them. Of course we did. We like peace. It's efficient. But accords are agreements between civilized species. The question is, what happens when someone decides to be uncivilized? Her final slide appeared. Humans, the species that made peace treaties necessary. The silence that followed was the kind that happens when a room full of people suddenly realizes they need to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the universe. Dr. Sterling smiled pleasantly. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been educational. The Emergency Galactic Council session convened 4 hours later. The chamber looked like a diplomatic tornado had hit it. Representatives clustered in worried groups, appendages gesturing frantically. High Chancellor Thyros, ancient beyond measure, activated the holographic display showing Dr. Sterling's final slide. We are here to discuss whether humanity's classification needs reconsidering. The Zorathian delegate raised a trembling appendage. High Chancellor, I've reviewed our initial assessment. The human is correct. We based everything on a single diplomatic vessel. No proper planetary survey. Concerned murmurs. If even half of what she said is accurate, humans represent a new category of threat, not because they're violent, but because they're adaptable? Adaptable how? Asked the Nexarian ambassador. They've survived multiple extinctions, developed from stone tools to antimatter in 10,000 years, created planet-killing weapons, then chose not to use them. His voice faltered. They've built civilization on the principle that the most dangerous thing is another human with different opinions. That's not necessarily bad, offered a peaceful collective representative. Many species have violent phases. No, Thyros said quietly. Most species become peaceful because they evolve beyond violence. Humans became peaceful because they became too good at violence. There's a difference. The implications sank in. What does that mean for us? Asked a crystalline collective representative. It means we've been measuring danger wrong. We've been looking at natural capability. But humans introduced a new variable: restraint. The display showed a new classification matrix. A species that chooses to be peaceful is different from one that has no choice. It's the difference between a sleeping predator and a herbivore. Are you suggesting humans are sleeping predators? I'm suggesting humans might be something we've never encountered. A species that has weaponized peace itself. Confused chatter erupted. Thyros waited for quiet. What's the most effective way to be dangerous? Appear harmless until you need to be otherwise. Humans have spent decades convincing us they're gentle and diplomatic. Meanwhile, they've been sitting on a planet that's essentially a military academy disguised as a biosphere. Are you saying humanity's diplomatic approach has been deceptive? Strategic. There's a difference. I believe humans genuinely want peace, but they want it on their terms. with the capability to enforce those terms. Counselor Vex spoke up. If that's true, what do we do about it? Silence. We could revoke their membership. On what grounds? Thyros asked. They've been cooperative. They've only given us a more complete picture. We could quarantine their system. With what? Vex asked. If they're as dangerous as claimed, quarantine would be inadvisable. There is another option, Thyros said quietly. We could accept them as they are. Acknowledge we were wrong. Update our system and hope our initial assessment of their character was correct. You mean hope they're really peaceful? Hope they continue to choose to be peaceful? If Dr. Sterling is right, that's all peace has ever been for humans. A choice. After a moment, Vex spoke. There's one way to find out. Test them. Horrified protests erupted. Not an attack, Vex clarified. A challenge. Something requiring them to demonstrate capabilities without threatening anyone. What if they take offense? Then we'll know what we're dealing with. What kind of challenge? Something academic. Dr. Sterling gave a presentation about capabilities. We asked for a practical demonstration. A demonstration of what? Everything. Their adaptability, technology, restraint, their ability to be peaceful or dangerous as required. The chamber fell silent. It was either reasonable or catastrophic. The vote was closer than expected. Motion carries, Thyros said finally. We will issue a formal challenge to humanity. May whatever gods we believe in help us all. Dr. Sterling was enjoying coffee when the invitation arrived, delivered by a nervous Zorathian diplomat who kept shifting colors. Dr. Sterling, the Galactic Council requests your presence for a formal demonstration of human capabilities. What kind of demonstration? A comprehensive one. The Council wishes to observe practical examples of human adaptability, technological capability, and strategic thinking. When? At your convenience. The Council is eager to resolve this quickly. Dr. Sterling finished her coffee and stood. The diplomat stepped backward. Tell the Council I'll be happy to provide a demonstration. But I should warn you, I'm not the most qualified human for this. I'm just a professor. What would you consider qualified? Dr. Sterling smiled that same reasonable smile. Someone with practical experience, someone who's actually done the things I was talking about, someone who can show you rather than just tell you. The diplomat's structure dimmed. Are you saying there are humans more dangerous than you? Oh, I'm not dangerous at all. I'm a teacher. I just know about dangerous things. But if you want a real demonstration... She picked up her communication device. I suppose I could make some calls. The diplomat was now practically transparent. Calls to whom? To people who aren't teachers. To people who've actually done the things I was talking about. She scrolled through contacts. Let's see, my brother's a military historian, very practical. Or my cousin in engineering, specializes in things that go boom. Or, she paused. My old roommate. She went into conflict resolution. What's conflict resolution? What we call it when we help other people solve their problems. Usually problems they didn't know they had until we showed up. The diplomat was flickering like a dying light. Perhaps this demonstration isn't necessary. Perhaps the Council could take your word for it. Oh, but where's the fun in that? Besides, you issued a formal challenge. It would be rude not to respond appropriately. She pressed a button. A crisp, professional voice answered. Amanda, what do you need? Hi, Alex. Remember how you said I made humanity sound too gentle in my papers? Yeah, I just gave a presentation to the Galactic Council, and now they want a practical demonstration. Long pause. Practical. Comprehensive. They want to see everything. Another pause. Are they sure about that? They issued a formal challenge. Well, in that case, I suppose we shouldn't disappoint them. When and where? Your choice. They said at my convenience. Tell them tomorrow. Council chambers. Full assembly. And Amanda? You might want to warn them that they asked for this. The line went dead. Dr. Sterling turned to the diplomat, who was barely visible. Tomorrow. Council chambers. Full assembly. The diplomat nodded weakly and started to leave. Halfway to the door, Dr. Sterling called out, "Oh, one more thing. You might want to make sure everyone understands this was their idea, just so there's no confusion later about who asked for what." The diplomat fled. Dr. Sterling poured another cup of coffee. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so thoroughly scanned by security in their 2,000-year history. Every sensor was active, every detection grid online, every possible threat assessment protocol running at maximum sensitivity. The irony wasn't lost on High Chancellor Thyros that they were treating a single human's visit like a potential invasion. Dr. Sterling arrived precisely on time, which somehow made everything worse. Punctuality suggested planning, and planning suggested things the council was rapidly deciding they didn't want to think about. She wasn't alone. The woman beside her moved with the kind of casual confidence that made security personnel reach for weapons they couldn't identify. She was unremarkable in every way that mattered. Average height, pleasant smile, the sort of person you might sit next to on public transport without giving a second thought. Except for her eyes, which held the kind of patient awareness that suggested she was cataloging every exit, every potential weapon, every tactical weakness in the room's design. "Council members," Dr. Sterling said, "I'd like you to meet Alex Morgan. She'll be handling the practical demonstration." Alex raised a hand in what was presumably a friendly gesture. Half the security team tensed. "Before we begin," Alex said, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, "I brought something I thought you might find interesting." She reached into what appeared to be a standard carry bag. Every weapons scanner in the room had already confirmed it contained nothing dangerous. The security chief had personally verified this 3 times. Alex pulled out a small, furry creature that immediately drew collective gasps from the assembled aliens. "This is Buster," she said, holding the animal up for everyone to see. "He's what we call a dog, specifically a golden retriever. We keep them as pets." The creature, Buster, wagged what appeared to be its tail and panted happily at the crowd. It was, by any reasonable standard, adorable. "Pets?" asked the Zorathian delegate, his crystal structure brightening with curiosity. "Like companions?" "Exactly," Alex said. "Dogs live in our homes, play with our children, sleep in our beds. They're part of the family." The council members relaxed slightly. A species that kept cute, harmless animals as companions couldn't be that dangerous. "Of course," Alex continued conversationally, "Buster here is descended from wolves." The relaxation stopped. Wolves? The Nexarian ambassador's tentacles had gone very still. "Apex predators," Alex confirmed. "Pack hunters. Evolved to bring down prey much larger than themselves through coordinated attacks. Humans took these predators and, over thousands of years, selectively bred them into companions." She scratched Buster behind the ears. The dog's tail wagged harder. "The interesting thing," Alex said, "is that we didn't breed the predator out of them. We just redirected it." As if on cue, something small and metallic clattered across the floor of the chamber. Buster's head snapped toward the sound with startling speed, his entire posture shifting. For just a moment, every alien in the room could see exactly what this creature's ancestors had been. Then Alex said, "Good boy," and Buster was back to panting happily. "We have about 400 different breeds of dog," Alex continued. "Some bred for hunting, some for guarding, some for fighting, some just for companionship. But they're all the same species, all descended from wolves, all living in human homes." The council chamber was very quiet. "To the point," Dr. Sterling said, "is that humans have a tendency to take dangerous things and make them useful." "You domesticated apex predators," the crystalline collective representative said, their form vibrating with what might have been awe or terror. "For companionship." "We domesticated everything," Alex said. "Horses for transportation, cattle for food, cats for pest control. We took the entire ecosystem and reorganized it around human needs." "What about things you couldn't domesticate?" asked Councillor Vex. Alex's smile became something that made the security chief reach for his emergency protocols. "We eliminated them," she said simply. "Competing predators, dangerous diseases, anything that threatened human dominance. We turned Earth into a garden where the only truly dangerous thing left was other humans." Buster chose that moment to roll over on his back, presenting his belly for scratches. Alex obliged, and the dog's leg kicked happily. "The really interesting part," she said, "is that this process taught us something important about ourselves." "Which is?" Thyros asked. though their tone suggested they weren't sure they wanted to know, that we're very good at identifying what makes something dangerous, and then either eliminating that danger or turning it to our advantage. She looked directly at the council members. It's become something of a human specialty. The brief recess that followed was filled with the kind of urgent, whispered conversations that happen when people realize they may have made a terrible mistake. The council members huddled in small groups, their various appendages gesturing frantically as they tried to process what they'd just learned. "High Chancellor." Thyros found themselves standing alone at the great windows that looked out over the capital city of the Galactic Council. Behind them, they could hear fragments of panicked conversation. Domesticated wolves, eliminated competing predators, turned the entire ecosystem. When the session resumed, Alex was sitting casually in the witness chair, still scratching Buster's ears. The dog had apparently decided that Galactic Council proceedings were excellent nap opportunities. "Miss Morgan," Thyros said, "perhaps you could tell us more about daily life on Earth. Help us understand what humans consider normal." "Sure," Alex said. "What would you like to know?" "Perhaps," suggested the Nexarian ambassador, "you could describe a typical day for an average human." "Okay," Alex said thoughtfully. "Let's say my neighbor, Jennifer. She's a teacher, has 2 kids, pretty standard human life." The council members leaned forward, eager for insight into normal human behavior. "Jennifer gets up around 6 in the morning and immediately ingests a mild stimulant," Alex began. "A stimulant?" the Zortothian delegate asked. "Coffee," Alex explained. "Liquid caffeine. Humans consume it to increase alertness and suppress fatigue. Most humans are physically dependent on it." Several council members exchanged glances. A species that started every day with drug dependency was concerning. To that, she takes a shower, using water heated to temperatures that would cause severe burns to most skin types, then applies various chemical compounds to her hair and skin. Chemical compounds? Soaps, shampoos, cosmetics? Stuff to clean her and change her appearance. Then she gets dressed in clothing made from processed plant fibers or the fur of domesticated animals. The litany continued. She feeds her children a breakfast that includes the processed seeds of various plants, the secretions of domesticated mammals, and usually some form of concentrated sugars. Then she puts them in a metal vehicle powered by controlled explosions and travels at speeds that would be fatal if the vehicle stopped suddenly. The council chamber was getting very quiet again. Sheen drops the children at an institution where they spend 8 hours learning human social behaviors, mathematical concepts, and historical accounts of human conflicts. Meanwhile, Jennifer goes to her own institution, where she spends the day teaching other humans how to perform similar tasks. "That doesn't sound so unusual," ventured the peaceful collective representative. "Oh, I'm not done," Alex said. After work, Jennifer picks up the children and takes them to various activities. Soccer, for instance. Soccer, a game where teams of humans attempt to move a ball into designated areas using only their feet. It's considered a peaceful sport. Thing done. Those sound dangerous. It's called the beautiful game by humans. It's played by over 4 billion people across Earth. It causes riots. Riots? Large groups of humans become so emotionally invested in the outcome of the game that they engage in mass violence. Cities have been burned down over soccer matches. People have died. The silence stretched. "And this is recreational?" Thyros asked. "Quite the form of our most popular forms of entertainment," Alex confirmed. "We also have American football, which is essentially controlled warfare, with padding. Ice hockey, which involves humans moving at high speeds on a slippery surface while wielding clubs. Baseball, where humans throw hard objects at each other, at velocities exceeding 90 miles per hour. It's our games, children's games," Alex said. "We teach them to kids as young as 5. The crystalline collective representative was vibrating so rapidly they were creating an audible hum. "What do adults do for entertainment?" they asked weakly. "Well, there's boxing, where 2 humans attempt to render each other unconscious using only their fists. Mixed martial arts, which is similar but allows more diverse techniques for causing injury. Wrestling, which is theatrical violence performed for audience entertainment." Alex paused to think. "Oh, and we have reality television, where humans volunteer to be placed in stressful situations and filmed while their relationships deteriorate for public amusement. This is normal?" the Nexarian ambassador asked. "Jennifer considers it all perfectly normal," Alex said. After the children's sports activities, she goes home and prepares dinner, which typically involves applying extreme heat to various organic materials until they reach temperatures that would cause immediate cellular damage. Then the family sits together and watches broadcasts of human conflicts, natural disasters, and criminal activities while they eat. Where would they watch such things? Information, Alex said. Humans like to stay informed about potential threats, social problems, and dangerous situations they're not currently involved in. We call it news, and most humans consider it essential. What happens then? The children are sent to small, dark rooms where they become unconscious for approximately 8 hours. Sleep, during which their brains process the day's experiences and their bodies perform cellular repair. Humans are essentially helpless for 1/3 of their lives. That seems vulnerable, which is why humans typically sleep in fortified structures with multiple layers of security. Locked doors, alarm systems, sometimes armed guards or trained animals. Like Buster. Muster's a retriever. Gentle breed, but yes, many humans keep guard dogs. German shepherds, Rottweilers, pit bulls, breeds specifically selected for their ability to detect and deter intruders. Intruders? Other humans, mostly. Humans trying to enter without permission to take resources or cause harm. The council members were staring at Alex with expressions of growing horror. This is daily life? Thyros asked. For Jennifer, yes. Pretty standard suburban experience. What about humans who don't live suburban lives? Alex's smile returned, and somehow it was worse than before. Well, that gets more interesting. During the second brief recess, the Zorathian delegate approached High Chancellor Thyros with the kind of urgency that suggested impending crisis. Chancellor, he said, his crystal structure flickering with distress, I've been reviewing the data from our initial contact with humanity, and the ship that made first contact, the Harmony. I looked up its crew manifest. What about it? Dr. Amanda Sterling was the head xenobiologist on that mission. Thyros felt something that might have been the galactic equivalent of a chill. You're saying the harmless professor who gave yesterday's presentation was actually part of the initial contact team? Not just part of it, the Zorathian said. She designed the entire first contact protocol. The peaceful approach, the diplomatic crew selection, the unarmed ship design, all of it was her idea. The implications settled over Thyros like a heavy blanket. She's been planning this from the beginning. It appears so. And if her presentation yesterday was accurate, she's been deliberately portraying humanity as harmless while knowing exactly how dangerous they actually are. Thyros looked through the chamber's great windows at the city beyond, where billions of aliens from dozens of species lived in peaceful cooperation. They'd built this civilization on the assumption that any species capable of reaching the stars had evolved beyond their violent impulses. What have we done? They whispered. I think, the Zorathian said quietly, we're about to find out. When the session resumed, Alex was exactly where they'd left her, still petting Buster, still wearing that pleasant smile that was beginning to look more sinister by the hour. Miss Morgan, Thyros said, before we continue, I have a question. Shoot. Several security officers twitched at the word choice. Dr. Sterling mentioned that you specialize in conflict resolution. Could you elaborate on what that means? Alex considered this for a moment. Well, she said, it means I help solve problems when normal diplomatic channels break down. What kind of problems? The kind where someone decides they don't want to play by the rules anymore, where talking stops working and more direct approaches become necessary. More direct approaches? Let me ask you a question, Alex said, leaning forward slightly. What do you do when someone threatens everything you've built? When they decide that your peace, your civilization, your way of life is inconvenient for their goals? The council chamber was silent. What do you do, Alex continued, when someone looks at everything you love and decides they want to take it away from you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. We have laws, Thyros said finally. Treaties, diplomatic protocols, and when someone decides those don't apply to them, we have enforcement mechanisms, sanctions, isolation, and when those don't work, the silence stretched. When someone is willing to use violence to get what they want, Alex said, what do you do if you're not willing to use violence to stop them? We, Thyros began, then stopped. You surrender, Alex said simply. You give them what they want and hope they'll be satisfied. You let them win because the alternative is unthinkable. She stood up, and Buster immediately came to attention beside her. That's what most species do. It's reasonable, it's civilized, it's the logical choice when violence is too costly to contemplate. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every council member. But here's the thing about humans, she said. We've made violence cheap. The words fell into absolute silence. When someone threatens us, we don't have to choose between surrender and mutual destruction. We have other options. Lots of other options. Options we've spent thousands of years developing, refining, perfecting. What kind of options? Counselor Vex asked. Though their tone suggested they weren't sure they wanted to know, Alex smiled, and this time there was nothing pleasant about it at all. Would you like a demonstration? The security chief of the Galactic Council had dealt with diplomatic incidents before. Trade disputes that got heated. Territorial disagreements that required careful mediation. Once, memorably, a philosophical argument between two species that had resulted in someone throwing ceremonial fruit. He had never dealt with a human asking if the assembled representatives of galactic civilization would like a demonstration of violence. Perhaps, High Chancellor Thyros said carefully, we could start with something theoretical. Alex Morgan's smile suggested she found this amusing. Theoretical? Sure. She gestured to the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. May I? Tyros nodded, though every instinct they'd developed over 2 millennia of governance was screaming mornings. Alex approached the display console with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this before. The fact that she immediately understood alien technology that had taken most species decades to master was not lost on anyone present. Let's talk about human history, she said, her fingers dancing over controls that shifted the display to show a 3-dimensional map of Earth. Specifically, let's talk about what humans were doing while the rest of you were developing warp drive. The map zoomed in to show the planet's surface, then began to shift and change, displaying Earth as it had existed at various points in history. This is Earth about 12,000 years ago, Alex said. End of the last ice age. Global human population, maybe 5 million. Scattered tribes, basic tools, just learning agriculture. The display showed small clusters of lights scattered across continents. Most galactic species at this stage are peaceful. They've learned to cooperate, share resources, work together for survival. It's logical. It's efficient. It's how intelligent life is supposed to develop. She clicked to the next image. The lights had multiplied and spread. This is Earth 4,000 years later, population 50 million, but here's where things get interesting. The display began showing lines between different population centers. Red lines. Those red lines represent conflicts, wars. Humans had discovered agriculture, established permanent settlements, developed trade networks, and then we immediately started fighting each other over who controlled what. The red lines multiplied rapidly as the timeline advanced. By this point, most species have established planetary governments, united global civilizations working toward common goals. Humans had established approximately 200 separate political entities, and they were all trying to kill each other. The Zorathian delegates' crystal structure was dimming again. Surely this was just a phase. Most species go through territorial disputes before achieving unity. You'd think so, Alex said. Let's jump ahead a few thousand years. The display shifted to show Earth as it existed 2,000 years ago. The red lines had become red zones, covering vast areas of the planet. This is Earth during what we call the Classical period. Height of the Roman Empire. Population about 300 million. Romans had conquered most of the known world through military conquest, and were busy fighting everyone else. She zoomed in on a particular region. At the same time, in China, multiple kingdoms were engaged in what we call the Warring States period, constant warfare for territorial control. In Central Asia, nomadic tribes were perfecting cavalry warfare. In Northern Europe, Celtic tribes were developing new and improved methods of siege warfare. The display continued its grim timeline. The thing is, humans weren't fighting over resources anymore. There was plenty of land, plenty of food, plenty of everything. We were fighting over ideas. Who had the right ideas about government, religion, philosophy, the proper way to organize society? The Nexarian ambassador's tentacles were writhing. That's not logical. No, it's not, Alex agreed. but it was incredibly effective at one thing: making humans very, very good at fighting. The timeline accelerated, showing the rise and fall of empires, the spread of religions, the development of new technologies of war. Every few hundred years, humans would develop new ways to kill each other more efficiently. Better weapons, better tactics, better strategies. And because we were constantly at war with other humans, we had to keep innovating or die. The display showed the Industrial Revolution, and the red zones became more intense. This is where most species would have destroyed themselves, Alex said. The point where warfare becomes so efficient that it threatens planetary survival. Most civilized species recognize this threshold and step back from violence. But humans didn't, Thyro said. It wasn't a question. Humans doubled down. We industrialized warfare, mass production of weapons, professional armies, military academies. We turned killing into a science. The display showed the early 20th century, and the red zones became almost overwhelming. In the span of 30 years, humans fought 2 global wars that killed over 100 million people. We developed chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. We created bombers capable of destroying entire cities, submarines that could sink any ship on the ocean, tanks that could break through any fortification. The council chamber was silent, except for the crystalline collective representatives' anxious vibrating. And then, Alex said, we got creative. The display shifted to show the Cold War period. After proving that we could destroy civilization with nuclear weapons, humans spent the next 50 years developing ways to fight wars without using them. Proxy conflicts, intelligence operations, economic warfare, psychological operations, information warfare. She gestured to the display, which now showed a complex web of connections across the planet. We learned to fight wars where the enemy never knew they were under attack. Wars fought with economics, propaganda, cultural infiltration, technological sabotage. Wars where victory looked like the enemy's voluntary surrender. You weaponized everything, Counselor Vex said quietly. Everything, Alex confirmed. Music, movies, food, fashion, language, religion, philosophy, mathematics, science. If it existed, humans found a way to use it as a weapon. The timeline reached the present day. By the time humans developed faster than light travel, we had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of conflict. Not just violence. Conflict in all its forms. We had become a species that could fight wars on levels most others didn't even know existed. She turned to face the council directly. And then we met you. The silence that followed was absolute. You want to know what humans are really good at? Alex asked. We're good at recognizing power structures and finding ways to work within them, around them, or through them. We're good at adapting to new environments and turning them to our advantage. We're good at making other people want what we want them to want. He gestured to the chamber around them. 6 months ago, you'd never heard of humans. Today, we're full members of the Galactic Council. How do you think that happened? The realization hit the council members like a physical blow. In the back row, a representative from the Harmonious Collective actually fell out of their seat. The Zorathian delegates' crystal structure went completely dark for several seconds, before flickering back to a sickly yellow glow. You're saying, Thyro said slowly, that humanity's entire approach to galactic civilization has been strategic? I'm saying, Alex replied, that humans are very good at getting what we want. And what we wanted was a place at the galactic table. But the peace accords, protested the Nexarian ambassador. The diplomatic protocols, the cooperative agreements, all very real. Alex said, humans believe in peace. We prefer it. It's much more efficient than war. But believing in peace and being naive about power are two very different things. She walked back to the holographic display and brought up a new image, the current political structure of the galaxy. Look at your civilization, she said. Really look at it. How does it work? The display showed the various species, their territories, their relationships, their power structures. You have a council that makes decisions by consensus, laws that everyone agrees to follow, enforcement mechanisms that rely on mutual cooperation and economic sanctions. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It's everything a rational species would want in a galactic government. She highlighted certain aspects of the structure. It's also completely dependent on everyone choosing to participate. The moment someone decides they don't want to play by the rules anymore, the whole system falls apart. That's why we have the peace accords, the peaceful collective representative said. Everyone agrees that violence is unacceptable. Everyone agrees, Alex said, because until now everyone who reached this level of development was naturally peaceful. You've built a civilization based on the assumption that anyone capable of interstellar travel has evolved beyond their violent impulses. She turned back to the council. But what happens when you encounter a species that hasn't evolved beyond violence? A species that has, instead, evolved to be really, really good at it. Are you threatening us? Thyros asked. I'm explaining reality, Alex said. You've built a peaceful civilization that has no defense against a species that chooses not to be peaceful. You've created a power structure that only works if everyone agrees to let it work. The display shifted to show various scenarios. What would happen if one species decided to ignore the council's authority? If another chose to use force to settle disputes? If a third simply stopped participating in the cooperative agreements that held everything together? Your entire civilization is one aggressive species away from collapse, Alex said. And now you've encountered humans. But humans signed the peace accords, someone protested. Of course we did, Alex said. We like peace, but we also understand that peace is only possible when everyone agrees to it. And we understand that sometimes, to preserve peace, you have to be willing to fight for it. The implications were sinking in throughout the chamber. You're saying humans could destroy galactic civilization if we wanted to, Vex said. I'm saying humans could reshape galactic civilization if we needed to, Alex corrected. Destruction is wasteful. Humans prefer more elegant solutions. She gestured to the display again. For instance, what if there was a species that specialized in protecting peaceful civilizations from less peaceful ones? A species that could provide the security that allows everyone else to remain peaceful? A species that could handle the, unpleasant necessities, so that everyone else could focus on art, science, philosophy, and all the beautiful things that make civilization worthwhile? The silence stretched as the council members processed this. You're offering to be our protectors? Thyros asked. I'm pointing out, Alex said, that you need protectors whether you want them or not. The galaxy is a big place. Eventually, you're going to encounter something that doesn't share your values, something that sees your peaceful civilization and thinks, easy target. And when that happens, Alex's smile returned, but this time it wasn't threatening. It was almost sad. When that happens, you'll need someone who speaks their language. Someone who understands how violence works, how power works, how to fight the kind of war that keeps everyone else from having to fight at all. She looked around the chamber. The question is, would you rather have that someone be your friend or your enemy? The third recess was the longest yet, and for good reason. What had started as a simple demonstration of human capabilities had become something much more complex. A fundamental reconsideration of how galactic civilization worked. High Chancellor Thyros found themselves alone again, staring out at the city they'd spent their life helping to build. It was beautiful, peaceful, every species living in harmony, working together toward common goals, sharing knowledge and resources freely. It was also, they now realized, completely vulnerable. Chancellor, the voice belonged to Dr. Sterling, who had apparently approached without Thyros noticing. Dr. Sterling, Thyros said, I suppose you're here to explain how this was all part of your plan. Actually, Dr. Sterling said, I'm here to apologize. Thyros turned, surprised. Apologize for the deception, for letting you believe humans were harmless when we knew we weren't, for manipulating your expectations and using your assumptions against you, and yet you did it anyway. Yes, Dr. Sterling said simply. Because the alternative was worse. Which alternative? Dr. Sterling joined Thyros at the window, looking out at the peaceful city. The alternative, where humans arrive as conquerors instead of applicants, where we take what we want instead of asking for it, where we impose our will instead of working within your system. You could have been honest from the beginning. Could we? Dr. Sterling asked. Would you have accepted us into the council if you'd known what we really were? Would you have given a species of weaponized primates a seat at the table of galactic civilization? Thyros considered this. Probably not. they admitted. So, we found another way. We proved ourselves as peaceful, cooperative, valuable members of galactic society. We earned our place through merit rather than force, but it was still deception. Yes. And now we're telling you the truth. Where now? Dr. Sterling was quiet for a moment. Because something is coming, she said finally. Our long-range sensors have detected it. A species that makes humans look like pacifists. Something that has consumed 17 star systems and is heading this way. Tyros felt their ancient blood turn cold. How long? 5 years. Maybe 6. And you think humans can stop them? I think humans can give you a chance. We can be the teeth in the mouth of galactic civilization, the claws that protect the body, the nightmare that keeps other nightmares away. Dr. Sterling turned to face Thyros directly. But we can't do it as outcasts or conquerors. We can only do it as members of the family, as protectors who are trusted, valued, and integrated into the system we're trying to protect. And if we refuse? Then in 5 years, you'll face the coming threat with sanctions and strongly worded resolutions. And after that, she shrugged. Well, there probably won't be an after that. Thyros stared out at the city, at the billions of peaceful beings living their lives in blissful ignorance of what was coming. What do you want from us? They asked. Partnership, Dr. Sterling said. Not domination. Not subjugation. Partnership. Let humans be what we're good at being, so you can be what you're good at being. And what are we good at? Everything else, Dr. Sterling said. Art, science, philosophy, culture, all the beautiful things that make civilization worth protecting. Let us handle the ugly necessities, so you can focus on the meaningful work. She paused. Besides, you've already seen what happens when you try to handle violence yourselves. When the council reconvened, Alex was waiting with a simple proposal displayed on the holographic screen. Humanity requests authorization to establish the Galactic Defense Initiative, a military force dedicated to protecting council space from external threats, staffed and commanded by humans but serving all member species. The proposal was elegant, comprehensive, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. This would make humans the de facto military power in the galaxy, Counselor Vex observed. Yes, Alex said. It would. Why should we trust you with that kind of power? Alex smiled, and for the first time all day it was genuinely warm. Because we're asking for it instead of taking it. Because we're offering to serve instead of rule. Because we want to protect what you've built instead of replacing it with something else. She gestured to the proposal. But mostly because you don't really have a choice. The galaxy just became a much more dangerous place. You can either have humans as your guardians, or you can wait and see what else is out there. Etheridge strode forward, quickly, in a time. The vote, when it came, was unanimous, not because every council member trusted humans completely, but because they'd finally understood what Alex had been trying to tell them all along. In a universe that contained humans, the only winning move was to make sure the humans were on your side. The vote should have been simple, a yes or no question with clear consequences. But nothing involving humans, the council was learning, was ever truly simple. High Chancellor Thyros looked around the chamber, at faces that reflected every emotion the galaxy's species were capable of expressing. Fear, resignation, hope, despair, and something that might have been relief. Before we proceed, Thyron said, does anyone wish to speak against the proposal? Silence, not comfortable agreement, but the heavy silence of beings who understood they were trapped by circumstances beyond their control. Finally, the Zorathian delegate raised a trembling appendage. Chancellor, I have a question for the human. Alex nodded for him to continue. If we vote no, what happens? Nothing, Alex replied. Humans will respect the Council's decision and continue as ordinary members of galactic civilization. And the threat you mention? You'll face it without us. The Zorathian's crystal structure flickered. And if we vote yes, then humans will do what humans do best. We'll handle the unpleasant necessities so you don't have to, but you'll be armed, militarized, in control of galactic defense. How do we know you won't turn those weapons on us? Alex was quiet for a long moment. Because if we wanted to conquer you, we wouldn't have asked for permission first. The truth settled over the chamber like a shroud. Every council member understood that humanity's entire approach had been a choice. They could have arrived as conquerors. Instead, they'd chosen to ask. As in favor of authorizing the Galactic Defense Initiative, Zyros said, every appendage in the chamber rose. Not because they wanted to, but because the alternative was worse. Motion carries, unanimously. Alex Morgan smiled, and this time there was nothing threatening about it. Thank you. You won't regret this. We already do, muttered someone from the back. The transformation began immediately. Within hours, human ships that happened to be in the area began arriving at Council space. Not warships, those would come later, but transports filled with humans whose job titles included consultant, advisor, and specialist. Dr. Sterling watched from the observation deck as the first wave arrived. These weren't diplomats or professors. These were the humans Alex had promised, the ones who specialized in ugly necessities. Feeling proud of yourself? Counselor Vex had approached without her noticing. Feeling responsible. There's a difference, is there? You've just handed control of galactic civilization to weaponized primates. I've just given galactic civilization a chance to survive what's coming. Vex moved beside her at the window. Show me. Show you what? What's really coming? What's so terrible that it justifies all of this? Dr. Sterling activated her display. The image made Vex's breath catch. It was a star system. Or what had once been one. Now just debris and dying light, scattered remains of worlds torn apart for raw materials. This is the Kepler 442 system. Population: 6 billion sentient beings across 4 worlds. She changed the image to show the system 6 months ago. Beautiful worlds, orbital stations, advanced civilization. This is what it looked like before they arrived. Who are they? We call them the Harvesters, a species that consumes entire star systems for resources. They don't negotiate, communicate, or take prisoners. They just consume. The next image showed the progression. Ships appearing, systematic destruction of defenses, dismantling of planets. 17 star systems in 50 years. Over 200 billion sentient beings. All gone. Vex stared in horror. How do you know about this? Human long-range sensors are comprehensive. We've been tracking them for 3 years. They'll reach Council space in 5 years. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Would you have believed us? Would the Council have taken action based on warnings from a species you considered harmless? Or would you have formed a committee to study the issue? Vex was silent. The Harvesters don't respond to diplomacy. The only thing that stops them is superior force, applied with absolute precision and ruthless efficiency. And humans can provide that? Humans specialize in that. Outside, more ships continued arriving. Vex watched with new understanding. This isn't reinforcements. This is an invasion. A gentle, polite, completely voluntary invasion. This is survival. Yours and ours. When the Harvesters come, they won't distinguish between human space and Council space. They'll consume everything. You played us. All of it. The harmless first contact, the educational presentation, the demonstration. You manipulated us into giving you exactly what you wanted. Yes. Why admit it now? Dr. Sterling smiled that same pleasant, reasonable, implacable expression. Because it doesn't matter anymore. You've made your choice. The galaxy has a new order now, and humans are going to make sure that order survives. 6 months later, High Chancellor Thyros stood in the same spot where they'd watched the first human ships arrive. The view was very different now. Where once there had been peaceful civilian traffic, now there were human patrol ships. Sleek, deadly vessels moving with predatory grace through space that had never known military presence. The stations had been upgraded. Enhanced sensors, defensive shields, weapon systems that Council engineers didn't understand but had been assured were purely defensive. The humans had been polite about it. They'd asked permission for every modification, followed every protocol, observed every diplomatic nicety. They'd also transformed Council space into a fortress without anyone quite realizing how it happened. Chancellor, Dr. Sterling had been appointed as official liaison between the Council and the Galactic Defense Initiative. Dr. Sterling, I suppose you're here to brief me on the latest enhancements. Actually, I'm here to tell you that we've made contact. Tyros felt their hearts skip a beat. With the Harvesters, with their advanced scouts, 3 ships, edge of the Proxima system. They're evaluating. What happens now? Dr. Sterling's expression was calm, professional, and completely terrifying. Now we show them that this part of the galaxy has new management. Through the window, human ships changed course, moving with sudden purpose toward the edge of council space. There were more of them than yesterday. Many more. How many ships do you have out there? Enough. That's not an answer. Chancellor, with respect, you don't want to know the real answer. Thyros watched the ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire civilization. Dr. Sterling, are we doing the right thing? You're doing the only thing. The harvesters don't offer choices. They just offer endings. And if humans decide they like being in charge... Dr. Sterling was quiet for a moment. Chancellor, do you know what the most dangerous thing in the universe is? Based on recent experience, I'd say humans. No. The most dangerous thing in the universe is a human who has something to protect. She gestured toward the window, toward the vast expanse of council space. You've given us something to protect. All of this. Your art, your science, your philosophy. You've made us the guardians of everything beautiful and peaceful in the galaxy. And that makes us safe? They makes you family. And humans will do anything to protect their family. In the distance, space rippled as human weapons charged their systems for the first time in anger. We were wrong about Earth, Thyros said quietly. We thought you were harmless. You were wrong about everything. But it's too late to change that now. Outside the window, the stars seemed to hold their breath as the galaxy's new guardians went to war. The age of peaceful galactic civilization was over. The age of protected galactic civilization had begun. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient nightmares learned that Earth had produced something far worse than monsters. It had produced protectors.